This is Leaders in the Trenches, and your host today is
Hi, my name is Gene Hammett. I am the host of Leaders in the Trenches, and my big question for you today is, are you set in your routine? Is that routine defining everything about how you get your work done? Now, routines for you may be something that you're very comfortable with because they allow you to be productive. But what if I told you normal is broken? My guest today really believes that normal is broken. I have Jesse Itzler on the show. And Jesse, if you don't know of him, let me just give you a little bit about him. He, at a very early age, he created a category within the music business where he was writing these jingles for NBA teams. I know, kind of odd, but he is a powerhouse. He went on to really create a new category within the aviation world where he had co-founders of Marquis Jet, where they were selling 25-hour cards and created, I think he said $5 billion in sales and ended up selling that business to Warren Buffett's investment group. Then he went on from there to help brands like Zico water or coconut water to create a brand that they sold to Coca-Cola. And all of this was because he believes in his heart and his soul that normal is broken. So we're going to talk about what he means by normal is broken. And we're going to talk about how you could actually use this to create innovation inside your business. Now, don't miss a word of this. You want to stay all the way to the end because we talk about some of the key things that you can do as a leader, as a business owner, to get out of that routine to really spark something really amazing. All right, here's the interview with Jesse Itzler.
Hey, Jesse, how are you?
I'm doing great, Gene. How are you?
Well, I am fantastic. Thanks for being here at Leaders in the Trenches.
I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate you thinking of me.
Well, I recently took your course on Build Your Life Resume, and I will say that I jumped in just on pure faith alone that because you're awesome in business and some of the things you accomplished in life, but I got so much out of it in so many areas. Just seeing how you think is pretty impressive, Jesse.
Well, I thank you for taking the course, and I was excited to lead it, and I think it was more fulfilling for me than anybody else, but I appreciate you staying with it and doing it.
Well, for those that don't know all of your successes, maybe let's just talk about some of the things you've done and about, kind of why you do what you're doing right now. Is that okay?
Sure. I've had a very unconventional background in business. I started out in the music business. I was signed to a record label as a rapper in the early 90s. That didn't go great for me. I pivoted. I got into a different, really created my own category in music. I started writing theme songs for professional sports teams and sold that company to a public company. And then I started a private jet company called Marquis Jet, which we sold to Warren Buffett's, Berkshire Hathaway's, NetJets. And then got involved with a coconut water company called Zico, which we sold to Coca-Cola. I written a couple of books. One's called Living with the Seal. One is called Living with the Monks. And that was a really great experience for me. We're happy to talk about that as well. I'm married, 4 kids, and part of the Atlanta Hawks ownership group. I live in Atlanta. I'm an ultra marathoner. I ran 100-mile races, ultra paddleboard races, and I guess I'm an adrenaline junkie.
And I don't know if you've ever been called this. Probably you have, but Mr. Blakely?
I'm married to my wife's name is Sarah Blakely. She's the founder of Spanx. And so very often people think that I'm Mr. Blakely.
Yeah, I say that jokingly, but she's a powerhouse. And so it's hard to, I think you do well with her because you probably are very different in the way you approach things than Sarah is. Would you agree?
When insane marries insane, you get normal.
Okay. Well, I wanted to transition into one particular aspect of this. So over the course of 8 weeks, we went through very different aspects of creating a life resume. And I did this with you in a group format, and we listened to videos every week. And I wanted to have you on the show, which I don't do very often, because it was so powerful. And one element of that, Jesse, was normal is broken. So let's just set up. Why is normal broken?
That was what I think lecture number 6 in an 8-lecture series. We've all been taught from the same playbook, which means that if you're taught from the same playbook and do things the way everybody else does things, you're going to get the same results as everybody else. I always tell my employees, if nobody taught you how to do your job, how would you do it? And that's where innovation comes from. That's where creativity comes from. So I'm a big believer in ripping up the playbook. If you look at the statistics in this country, we'll leave business aside, but you look at the percentage of adult men that are overweight, 40% obese, the divorce rate. I think they just did the Harris group conducted a study that 67% of adults are unhappy. That's what normal is leading you down the road to. And I'm a big believer in creating your own system that works for yourself, trying different things until you make your own system, not the system that's necessarily taught by everybody. And that's the backbone of what that lecture is. And we talk about ways to get out of routine, ways to get newness. As an adult, Gene, it's really hard to introduce newness into your life.
Yeah.
And really the only place that you get growth, or the place where you get the most growth, is stepping into the unknown. Yet we live in routine, and you live in routine and the clock goes fast. And before you know it, you wake up, you're 70, you're 60 pounds overweight, and you can't run the marathon you always wanted to run when you were younger, but didn't have the time to do. So this course and this particular lecture, Normal is Broken, is about getting out of your routine and mixing it up to get different results.
Well, I will tell you, when I first heard you talking about this, my normal routine is, I have a set week and I've got a pretty busy schedule, and I know what I'm doing on Monday. I know what I'm doing on Tuesdays and Thursdays and so on and so forth. And I actually know what I'm doing in the early part of the day and the later part of the day. And when you said Normal's Broken, change your routine, I had this nervous reaction to but my routine is my routine.
Yeah, exactly.
And in some cases it works for me, but in some cases I know that it doesn't. How do you distinguish between the two?
Well, whatever's working for you has gotten you as far as it's gotten you today. But how do you know what your potential is and your limits are unless you mix it up and push yourself in a different direction?
Yeah.
And so, I feel like the only way to really understand that is to try to push your limits and get out of your routine and break it up. And routines are really hard to get out of. Habit is really hard to break. We all know that. But if you're in a habit that's only gotten you to this level, a B, and you stay in that habit, you're going to stay a B. And who in the world wants to go through life as a B?
Yeah.
You always want to see, how much can you do? I mean, at least I do. So, I've always been a believer in checking the box and moving on. You finish something, you celebrate it for a day, and then it's over. If you didn't ask me to tell you about my background, Marquis Jet, big win for us. We did $5 billion in sales. We sold it. Amazing. I never think about it because it's over.
Yeah.
Nobody cares that the Dallas Mavericks won the championship 6 years ago. It's over.
Yeah.
So you check the box and you move on. You don't live in routine. And that's what I'm saying when I say that it's broken. We just live in this routine and then the time flies by and you're like, where'd all the time go? The time went doing the same stuff you've been doing every day.
Jesse, when you were talking about this, I happen to have my book on my desk, which is not always the case, but I wrote this, and it's called The Trap of Success. You see that?
I do.
And it really was about, a tough time in my life where I looked back and I was in routine and I never broke from that pattern. I was comfortable.
Right.
And I was complacent.
Right.
And I drifted along and I was very successful and I had created freedom in my business, in my life. But, the book kind of goes into how I lost it all and I only could see what happened by losing it and looking back.
Interesting.
And that's, this was my moment. This was my living with the seal part of life of how difficult it was. Yours was 30 days. Mine was years. But when you think about Normal is Broken, let's dive into a few of the key concepts behind this. So what do you think you should be doing to break those routines?
I think you should put something big on your calendar every year. I think it's really important. There's an old Japanese ritual. We talked about it in the course called the misogi, where you put something so big and challenging and scary on the calendar one time a year that the benefit lasts all 364 other days. The important thing about putting something big on your calendar is it forces you to get out of routine. You have to, all of a sudden, you have a new time commitment. So you have to weed out the things that aren't important. And you have to start saying no to create more time for the newness. And usually when you do that, you weed out the things that aren't as important. You prioritize the things that are. So it creates and this necessity to have newness and get out of your routine just because you have this new big challenge on the horizon. I like mixing up my commutes. I like going where I think best to really get clarity. You know, I don't spend enough, probably like many of the listeners, time alone. So I need, you know, I've almost kind of, over time, you start to lose your ability to think and your gut instinct because you're relying on Siri and Alexa and Google instead of like your ability to think, and then you lose your intuition. So I do all those kinds of things to try to really be, you know, in tune with myself. But whatever I can do to mix it up, I do. If that's rearranging my closet once in a while, taking a different route, changing, eating with a different hand, you know, going from right hand to left hand with my spoon, anything. And I make a mental note of it. Like I'm very aware of, wow, I'm doing this differently today. Just kind of inviting in newness into my life.
And I know this serves you in many different areas because that's one of the things that was part of the Life resume. There's many areas where we need to be looking and being intentional. For you, one of those things is relationships.
Yeah, which actually goes to what we were just talking about, normal is broken. You know, I was just thinking about it in my head. We hear all the time from the experts, oh, you want to be around like-minded people. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Why? If they're just like you, they're going to do the same stuff. It's good. Where's the growth? I try to surround myself with people that aren't like-minded. That's why I brought a Navy SEAL to come live in my house. That's why I went to go live with the monks. Now, you don't have to go that extreme, but the way you like learn more stuff and become more interesting and, you know, feel most alive is when you learn, and you learn from people, but you learn from people that aren't exactly like you. If I spent all the time with my twin brother that I don't have, we'd be this, you know, I wouldn't learn anything. So I try to get out and expand through people.
When you think about normal is broken, how has that really paid off for you in your business success?
Every area of my life, it's paid off for me. First of all, I've had no prior experience in anything I've gone into in my life in business. I started an aviation company with knowing nothing about jets or airplanes. I had no airplanes. I didn't know a lot of rich friends. But what that meant was it guaranteed that I was going to have different results than all the other companies. It meant my marketing would be different. It meant my pricing would be different. How I talk to customers would be different. So that same theme is translated into everything. Coconut water, I had no beverage experience. I didn't know anything about the product other than I loved it and it made me feel good. And again, it just guarantees you're going to get different results from everybody else. For a lot of people, it's a deterrent. Like, I don't have enough experience, or, you know, how I'm scared to do it this way. Everybody else is doing it that way. But for me, it was the greatest blessing because it just guaranteed, it just assured me I was going to have different results.
Now, I know a little bit about you just from reading and everything, Jesse. You said that you created a new category in music. You created a category in aviation where I know you initially got thrown out of the building because you were just a young kid, right? Were you 25 years old or so?
28, 29, yeah.
And
like
you actually came back and said, look, no one's going to buy a private jet, you know, a fraction of this, but they'll buy 25 hours.
Correct.
It was a new category at the time, right?
It was, yeah.
And then Zico water, I mean, no one was really drinking coconut water. It was a new category at the time.
Yep.
And so you're literally a trailblazer. Like, you know that, right?
Oh man. Well, thank you. I just, you know, I'm always eyes wide open, looking for opportunity. I'm not scared to go in where the white space is.
Yeah.
I'm not scared to, again, we're talking about normal is broken. The innovation doesn't come from following what others have done. For 27 years, I've only eaten fruit until noon. That's been my diet. Fruit only till 12 noon every single day, unwaveringly. Unwavering. And I just went to the website of Kellogg's. I was looking at some big companies today, their website, and they're all promoting how breakfast is the most important meal. And when I have a heavy breakfast and eat, a bagel or toast and oatmeal, and then I have a little muffin and this and that, I get tired.
Yeah.
I need a pick-me-up. I need a 5-hour energy or a coffee that I don't drink. But when I eat a smoothie, I'm 90 miles an hour all day, boundless energy. So I'm not saying that's the right way to do it or wrong way to do it. All I'm saying is I stepped away from what the quote unquote experts were saying about breakfast being the most important meal. And I created a system that works best for me. And that's what I encourage people to do in business or anything. If everybody says knock out your emails first thing in the morning, but for some reason in your life, you get more clarity at 4:00, do them at 4:00. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You create the system that works best for you, and you do it through trial and error.
I know that's for me. I'm very guarded over the time where I'm most creative, and it's really hard to get a meeting. I'm actually less creative in the afternoon. So I do my calls, my interviews and whatnot. Not that I rise to the occasion, but if I've got to sit down and write something, like the book was all written, between 9 and noon. And it wasn't really a play from your book, but I actually didn't eat until I finished a chapter. And that was my motivation.
I love that.
Sometimes I wouldn't eat till noon.
I love it.
And I did it that way. So when Jesse, you think about this normal is broken and creating categories in business, what do you look for now when you're working with brands, and how are you advising them? Because I know you do this with the 100 Mile Group as well.
Well, first of all, right now for me at this stage in my life, I just turned 50. I have 4 kids. The first thing I look for is low aggravation. So I have a very simple, we talked about this, measuring stick, and that's aggravation versus reward. So I look for things and people that aren't going to be highly aggravating to me in my life. Look, I look for products that I understand, things that I understand, things that I have passion for, things that are fulfilling to me, that do good for the world. And then I try to immediately go in my head 5 years down the road. And I look at what this could be, what the potential is. Can I help drive the potential there? Can I help fulfill the potential? Can I add value to it? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And can my strengths help here? Do they have people that can fill in my weaknesses? All of these things very quickly go through my head, and I spit out a number on a 1 to 10 of how interested I am in it, or yes or no.
Well, I want to give you a chance to maybe go a little bit deeper into some of your work, and we can go outside normal is broken, whatnot. But people are listening in here, and they know they need a jolt in life. They know they need a jolt in creating something that fulfills them. The first thing they're going to do tomorrow is wake up, maybe have a cup of coffee or a banana or a smoothie. What would you tell them to be thinking about or doing in a 15 minutes time frame to help them really think about making that change?
I mean, if someone's thinking about making a change, a lot of that usually stems from what they're doing for a living, because you spend 40 to 50 hours a week doing that. I heard a great thing that really resonated with me. And, like a great novel, humans have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we reflect on the beginning a lot. We live in the middle right now. That's where we spend most of our time. Most of our mind share is in the middle. We don't like to think about the end. In fact, I bet almost everybody listening to this probably doesn't have a plot picked out where they're going to be buried. We just don't want to deal with it, but it's going to happen. And we spend in the middle time most of our time at work. And what I heard that resonated with me was either you have a job, you have a career, or you have a calling. And as you get older, the best place to be is doing something that's really your calling. For you, Gene, you have a lot of things going on. You're a writer, you have a podcast, you have investments, you have a lot, Those all might be part of your calling. But for many people, they go through life, unfortunately, what they consider, and they're like, oh, it's just a job. Not really. It's 40 hours a week for the last 15 years. It's not just a job. It's your time, your aging, and all that stuff. So my advice would be like, what is it that you love to do? And who do you love to do it with? My advice is super simple. Put more things on your plate of the things you love to do with the people you love to do them with, period.
Yeah. I can get behind that. I love to travel. I love experiences much more than I love any kind of like a car or watch or anything like that. But when you talked about this, I kept thinking about the experiences I want to have and who I want to have those experiences with. And so you just reminded me again. So Jesse, thank you for being.
Yeah. No, Gene, I just want to, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
That was rude. You want to, you have to work, and I get that. I don't want to be misinterpreted here.
Yeah.
You want to be obviously happy in your job and doing something that's incredibly fulfilling. But for me, and maybe it's an inflection point because I just turned 50, and maybe that's really impacted how I think about it. But when I think about like, what does the next chapter look like for me, the next 30 years? Of course, I'm going to be working and doing things I don't want to do sometimes, and I'm going to have ups and downs. But the things that I can control, like spending more time with the people I want to spend it with, doing more of the things I love to do with them, that just has to get reprioritized and really become a priority. Otherwise, I'm going to have a tremendous amount of regret. So that's what I'm just trying to focus on. And that's, there's not a single day that goes by where I'm not planning, thinking, or taking action steps towards that.
Well, I can agree with all of the stuff that we've been talking about today. And that's the reason I wanted to have you on here and get this message out to my audience, and then to be able to spread that to as far as we can get it to spread. So Jesse, thanks for being here at Leaders in the Trenches.
Thank you, Gene.
I love this interview. Hopefully you took notes. I know I did. And if you are ready to light the world on fire, I want you to check in with yourself and make sure your routine is not something you just do every day because that's what you've always done. That you really think about what you're doing and how you're doing it. And if it's really serving you to create the life that you want, and even the business you want that creates freedom, creates impact in the world. My name's Gene Hammett. I work with hypergrowth companies. And if you are someone who thinks about leadership and thinks about really creating something powerful and creating a team and creating a business that does fuel your lifestyle and your work and your impact world, I want to make sure I can help you. If you are enjoying the content, great. If you have any questions, you want a second set of eyes around your business, your leadership, or culture, that's what I excel at. I study hypergrowth companies, and I'd love to help you too. Make sure you check in with me. Send me an email, gene@genehammett.com, or just engage with me on social media. You'll see me in all the right channels. All right, that's my piece today. As always, lead with courage, and I'll see you next time.